In today's video, we're going to be turning this local climbing center's website from this into this. And we're going to be using Figma. Let's get right to it. Okay, so we're going to make a frame in Figma and then we're going to check out the Block 10 website. It's not a terrible website. It definitely does its purpose. It shows off the place. It was created in Wix and I think you can kind of tell. So we're going to make this better. We're going to pull in the logo, and we've actually just simplified it a little bit there, just taking out the stuff above and below. I mean, you know it's a bouldering place. That's what the whole website's about. So let's make this into a header, and this is going to sit sticky to the top of the page. Their header right now seems to be a little bit broken, but let's pull in a navigation, and we might even change some of these. We might change the names of some of them. And we're going to pull one of these apart just so we have a prominent button for your main sort of call to action, and that will just be there on every page. So we've got book a session, and then we're actually going to duplicate it out for a waiver, because if you can imagine, people will come to the center, probably everyone has to fill a waiver, so they'll tell everyone go to the website, fill it out. So that'll probably actually be one of the most used things on the website, because every member will have to do it at some point. Now I'm just looking for some different sorts of fonts here. The one I end up going with is this sort of thick display font, because I think it just works well with that kind of climbing theme. But whenever you're starting a new project, it's always fun to try a bunch of things, experiment, and then you can always go back to things and change. Something you'll see me do a lot on this redesign, I go back and forward and change a bunch of sections multiple times. So it's quite good to be fluid with your design. Don't get yourself too bogged down with all the layouts and restrictive things too early on, because you might want to just go back and change things very easily. Here we're looking into doing a big hero section, and I think one of the best assets that they have on their website right now is that auto-playing video. Now, for the purpose of this mock-up, we're going to use this image that I found online. But what I would actually do for the website going live, I would use that video, and so where you see this image right now, I would have that as an auto-playing video that they currently have on their site. What I'm doing here is I'm actually using a technique I don't normally do, but basically if you take a circle and you give it a blur, then you can then use that as a mask for the image, and it's quite good for drawing the user's eye and kind of giving yourself little pockets of space where you might want to layer text on top. What we're going to do is we're going to pull out some of the most important information, like what is the #1 selling point of this gym. And I think something that they should definitely be proud of and talk about is that it's Dundee's first dedicated bouldering gym. So let's use that because it sounds good, instantly tells the user what it is, and then we can use some secondary information to sell it even more. So 558 meters squared of bouldering wall, we're also going to include that in there, and bang, we're starting to get somewhere with this. We're going to start incorporating some color. This is just pulling from the branding that they have right now, but having been to the gym myself, I would say orange is a big part of their branding. So I start to experiment with that orange here, but as you'll see, that orange and that pink are very contrasting to each other. I couldn't quite find a way to make them sit well, so I do play around with it, and I probably would play around with it more if I was to spend more time on this design, but I think by the end of this design I eventually ditch it altogether, and then we mainly just go with that pink. This little thing that I'm designing right now I think would be really useful for a user to pretty much just come to the site and immediately get a gym overview. For this to work, of course, they would need to have infrastructure in place about tracking users to know how many are in the gym and then be able to pull that onto the website itself. But if they could do it, I think it's a useful, cool thing to have. Now for this section, I'm not totally sure how I want it to look in my head. So for a starting point, I'm just pulling out useful information on the website, and then once we have it on the page, that's where you can get a little more idea of how you might want to design it. But for now, we're just going to pull this down here. We're not even going to touch on this yet because I've just had the idea. We're going to actually have 3 big call to actions here. These will be the key things that most of your users will come to the website to do, or stuff you want to showcase. So I think for the purpose of this, membership should be one of them. So let's make the first one here. Now we'll just make it rough because Like everything I do, I do it rough, and then we'll go over it, and then we'll improve it and keep improving it, and by the end hopefully it is looking nice. So let's paste in an image. Once we've got something simple, we're going to duplicate it out just to fill the space and see how 3 will look beside each other. Having these 3 big call to actions, it's also just a really good way of showcasing the place, because obviously we've used pretty big images for these, so directly under the hero we're going to get a good overview of the inside of the gym. We're going to add some arrows in here as well, just in case it's not obvious that these boxes are clickable. And of course, if the website was getting developed, then we probably want to have some kind of hover state interaction, but we're going to keep this section pretty simple just for now, because at this point we just kind of want to get the framework of the website down on the page, and then it's easier to go in and start improving things. Already it is starting to come together. What we're going to do now is the header, we're going to just make sure that that is sticky at the top of the page. As you'll be able to see that whilst I'm designing a certain section, I might go back to an earlier section and change little things there. And that's really just because with everything you do, you want it to be consistent and you want it to look like a cohesive design by the end of it. So I do a lot of that. Some people maybe make decisions that are a lot more locked in, but I think designing this way is quite fun. So yeah, but I'm still learning, of course. I'm not by any means the best designer. I'm just a guy out here making videos and learning too. Right, we're making a play icon because this is going to be a video. Now we have a hero video, but that's just going to be auto playing in the background. This, we actually want to show a full video. So in this section, it allows you to click into it. Now here, I'm going back to the call to actions, trying to see if I could work in that orange. I think it looks okay, but ultimately I decide against it. But we do go back to those call to actions and make them look a lot cooler before the end of this video. Now that we've gotten this far in the design, I have an idea about how I want to use these 3 text boxes that we made at the start, which I didn't know where they would sit. Well, I think them sitting underneath this video is going to be a good place, because with the video and these text prompts, you're going to know everything about this place and you're only halfway down the page. And you can probably notice as well, we haven't used big long text paragraphs describing the place. We're showing the place. If you've got a big wall of text, the user's probably not even going to read it, but this way the user already knows so much information just by scrolling down the page. Now here I wanted to try something a little bit different. I wanted to see if I could use some of these abstract icons. Now these icons don't really mean anything, but I think in the context of climbing and bouldering where you're setting routes and there's sort of A to B, it's kind of like a puzzle. Weirdly enough, I think it kind of works, and it kind of adds into the brand because we can use these things in a cool way, which we will later on, as you'll see once we're kind of getting to the final polishing of the site. Now this section I'm designing here is the section I had the most trouble with. You will see over the course of the next couple of minutes, I could not for the life of me find something that looked good. And sometimes design comes easy to you, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes you feel like you're back at square one. And so I try a lot of different things here until I find something that I think works. Now, I was having trouble with this big wall of text. I've just said that we didn't need it in the first place, but having some text on there that isn't used within an element is always going to be good for SEO. So I wanted to include it in some way. So we will go back and revisit this section, and it will change quite a lot for the final design. Here we're adding in a how to find us because we want to have a big map. Super important thing. You want people to know what time you're open, where you are, just the obvious things for a business like this. Now we're going to add in a footer. Now this is going to change a bit as well. I wanted to see if I could do some big obnoxious pink footer, but that pink is so obnoxious that when you use it in big block color, I think it's a little bit jarring. It comes across a little bit amateurish. I think it's cool, and you could definitely be edgy with it with some big type. But generally, I think that pink, we're just going to use it more as an accent color because it is very, very pink. But we're finally getting somewhere with this. As you can see, all the main things are down on the website. Now, this next part of the video is going to be sped up in some ways. This is me adding that last level of polish to the site. Now, I thought it'd be cool to kind of skew these buttons a little bit. I think it matches the theme of climbing, where you have all these polygon skewed walls. So we're actually going to include that on the call to actions as well. There's a lot of edges in climbing, a lot of jagged things. I would say like climbing in general is a little rough around the edges by nature. So incorporating that into the design in clever ways is just going to reinforce the brand, and it gives us some fun stuff to play with. So here I'm adding more of those abstract icons, seeing how I can get them to fit, and I really like that idea of those sort of half-tone dots. They kind of look like the walls themselves when they don't have any holds on. So it works with the brand, and it makes your design unique. So now we're just adding in more final touches. Now this opening hours and how to find us, this section is about to change, and I will speed this up because I do change things around, and yeah, I don't want to have this video being too long, but I'm working on different parts of the site to kind of give me more of an idea about how I should design those bits. The more you design, the more ideas you get. So at this point, I'm just trying to get inspiration from myself, because those sections are looking very amateurish at the moment. So I think one of the biggest problems with it is the opening times just doesn't seem prominent enough for me. So what I'm doing here, I'm going to add this big abstract pink shape right across the design. You can't miss it, couldn't be more obvious, and we can add in these little dots, and I think that looks quite cool. It definitely fits with the brand that we've established so far, and it wouldn't be something that I would necessarily come up with if I did it early on in the design. But now we have a lot of pink in the design, so because all of our links and main sort of attention grabbing call to actions are that pink, we want to start mellowing out things a little bit, because you want to have a visual hierarchy of importance, and if you have too much of one thing, then it loses its importance, and then everything starts to get a little bit lost. So we're actually going to tone back that newsletter section to put more, and I think it's going to sit a lot better if it's not pink, but we're still using that pink accent, but it draws more attention to the opening times than it does the newsletter. So this is the final result. As you guys can see, I think it's a little bit of an improvement over the current site. I did this one pretty quick. It only took me about 2 hours. If I was actually working on a website for a client, I probably would have spent a longer time just kind of getting things dialed in a little bit more. But hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit the like button if you did, and subscribe if you like this sort of content. And I'll catch you guys soon with another video.